Arizona, the desert land of endless sunsets and booming skylines, once carried the reputation of being a buyer's paradise. Families moved in from across the country chasing affordable homes, retirees sought refuge in quiet desert towns, and investors poured money into developments expecting unstoppable growth. But in 2025, the story has shifted. That shining reputation is beginning to crack, and the very dream that drew so many here is quickly turning into something far more uncertain. Behind the stucco homes and master plan communities, a demand collapse is quietly reshaping the market, and it's happening faster than most expected. Think about your own neighborhood. Have you noticed more for sale signs lingering longer than they used to? Are conversations at work or with friends shifting from excitement about buying to frustration over stalled offers or canceled contracts? The signals are all around us, and they're pointing to a harsh truth. Arizona's housing market is no longer bulletproof. It doesn't matter if you live in a bustling metro like Phoenix or a smaller community tucked away in the high country. When buyers step back, values follow, and the consequences ripple across every household. The questions practically ask themselves, could that home you once thought was your biggest asset turn into a financial trap? Could your dream of upgrading, downsizing, or even selling at the right time collapse before your eyes? And if you're a renter hoping to buy, what does this cooling market mean for your future? These aren't abstract worries. They're decisions thousands of Arizona residents are wrestling with right now. That's why this countdown matters. We're going to reveal the 10 Arizona cities where buyer demand is collapsing the fastest, and the insights might surprise you. Stay with me, because by the time we reach number one, you'll see why this shift is not just a dip, it's a reckoning. For years, Arizona carried the reputation of being one of America's most magnetic housing destinations. Families left crowded coastal states to find bigger homes in Phoenix suburbs. Remote workers packed up apartments in California and Oregon, chasing sunshine and cheaper living. Retirees sought peace in places like Prescott and Green Valley, while investors from across the country poured billions into land, condos, and short-term rentals. The story was simple. Arizona was growing, thriving, and unstoppable. Yet in 2025, the narrative has shifted dramatically, and what was once a dream destination is now facing a demand collapse that few saw coming. One of the biggest culprits has been the relentless rise in interest rates. With mortgages hovering near 7%, the same home that felt affordable just 2 years ago now demands hundreds more each month. That kind of pressure doesn't just change numbers on a spreadsheet, it changes decisions. Young couples who once pictured buying their first home are pressing pause. Families who plan to upgrade are holding back. Even investors with deep pockets are reconsidering, realizing the math no longer works. Layered on top of this is a surge in hidden costs. Insurance premiums, already climbing due to wildfire risks and extreme weather, have spiked to record highs. HOA fees in master plan communities, once manageable, are now ballooning into hundreds of dollars each month. For many buyers, these added costs push ownership beyond reach. The dream of Arizona's affordable lifestyle has quietly eroded, replaced by a reality where the monthly bill is heavier than ever. And then comes the oversupply. Builders raced to meet demand during the boom years, flooding the market with new subdivisions, condos, and rentals. But demand has slowed sharply, leaving rows of unsold homes and growing inventories in every major metro. Combine this with cooling job markets, tech layoffs in Chandler, slower logistics in Phoenix, even softening tourism in Sedona, and the foundation that supported Arizona's surge is cracking. This isn't evenly spread. Some cities are weathering the storm better than others, but in several communities, the pressure's already boiling over. And as we move into the countdown, you'll see exactly where buyer demand has collapsed hardest. At number 10, we begin in Flagstaff, a city that once seemed shielded from the volatility of Arizona's larger metros. Known for its university, cool mountain climate, and second home appeal, Flagstaff was long seen as a retreat from the desert heat and a safe bet for both lifestyle buyers and investors. But in 2025, that safety net is fraying. The very factors that made Flagstaff attractive, its forests, its altitude, its proximity to outdoor beauty, are now making it vulnerable. Wildfire risk has driven insurance premiums sky high, with many homeowners facing annual bills that rival mortgage payments. When you combine that with interest rates near 7%, affordability has been cut off at the knees. Buyers who once flocked here for vacation cabins or student rentals are hesitating, realizing the numbers don't add up. And locals, often dependent on education and tourism jobs, aren't positioned to absorb the rising costs. Have you seen homes sitting longer on the market? If you're in Flagstaff, the slowdown isn't subtle anymore. It's visible on every block. At number 9, the spotlight shifts south to Yuma. Positioned on the border, Yuma has always leaned heavily on agriculture and cross-border commerce to drive its economy. During the boom years, lower-priced homes here made the city a magnet for first-time buyers and seasonal residents. But weak wage growth is colliding with higher borrowing costs, and the result is painful. When household incomes can't keep pace with rising monthly payments, demand inevitably collapses. Families who once imagined buying in Yuma are now stuck on the sidelines, squeezed out not by lack of desire, but by sheer math. Sellers are cutting prices, yet buyers remain cautious. The agricultural sector itself faces uncertainties, from water shortages to labor disruptions, adding another layer of instability. For many, the idea of planting roots in Yuma feels less secure than it once did, and that erosion of confidence is visible in the growing stack of unsold homes. At number 8, we land in Mesa, a Phoenix suburb that exploded with investor interest during the migration wave. Condos and townhomes sprouted up rapidly, marketed to out-of-state buyers chasing rental yields and quick flips. For a while, the frenzy seemed unstoppable. But when investor money floods in too quickly, oversupply isn't far behind, and that's exactly what Mesa is experiencing in 2025. Rows of nearly identical townhomes now sit vacant, and short-term rental income has slipped as competition saturates the market. Locals, many of whom hoped Mesa would stay attainable, are finding themselves priced out of ownership while simultaneously watching investor demand vanish. The disconnect between wages and prices is widening, and with inventories climbing, sellers are slashing listings to stay competitive. If you live in Mesa, you've likely noticed entire neighborhoods with more for sale signs than families moving in. These 3 cities, Flagstaff, Yuma, and Mesa, represent the emerging cracks. Each story is different, but the theme is the same. What once felt stable is now shifting beneath residents' feet. And as troubling as these early warning signs are, they're only the beginning. The deeper we go into this countdown, the more severe the collapse becomes. And by the time we reach the top cities, the situation is far more than a slowdown. It's a reckoning. At number 7, we arrive in Prescott, a place long celebrated as one of Arizona's retiree havens. Nestled in the mountains with a slower pace of life, Prescott offered exactly what so many older Americans wanted: charm, tranquility, and a chance to stretch retirement savings further than in coastal states. For decades, that reputation kept demand strong. But in 2025, the equation looks very different. Retirees living on fixed incomes are confronting a financial reality they didn't plan for. Insurance premiums on homes, especially those near wildfire zones, have doubled or even tripled in some cases. Property taxes and HOA fees keep climbing, while Social Security checks and retirement accounts have not. Many older homeowners who dreamed of passing their golden years here are now faced with hard choices: sell at a loss, cut back on necessities, or stay put and hope the bills don't keep rising. The pressure isn't abstract, it's deeply personal, touching a generation that believed they'd earned security. And as fewer retirees can afford to move in, demand falls sharply, leaving Prescott with more listings and fewer willing buyers. Moving down the list to number 6, Chandler tells a very different story but ends in the same place: demand shrinking fast. Once the beating heart of Arizona's tech scene, Chandler thrived on semiconductor plants, corporate campuses, and the high-paying jobs that came with them. For years, the city rode that wave, attracting professionals and fueling a housing boom. But in 2025, that momentum has slowed. Tech layoffs across the country have rippled through Chandler, shaking confidence among workers who suddenly feel less secure in their careers. At the same time, the very success that drove demand has made the city expensive. Homes that seemed achievable for dual-income families in 2022 now feel like a stretch with interest rates pushing monthly payments skyward. When confidence falters and affordability shrinks, buyers retreat. And they have. Inventory is climbing, investors are offloading, and some neighborhoods that once buzzed with new arrivals now sit in a holding pattern. Chandler still has strong employers, but the buyer energy that defined the city has dimmed, leaving residents uneasy about what comes next. And then at number 5, Tucson, a city shaped by the steady presence of the University of Arizona, Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, and a rich cultural history. Tucson has always prided itself on being more affordable than Phoenix, a place where families, students, and military households could find value while enjoying the desert lifestyle. But affordability is a moving target, and in 2025, even Tucson is struggling to keep the balance. Home values surged dramatically in the post-pandemic boom, while local incomes lag behind. That widening gap has left first-time buyers priced out and long-time residents frustrated. The result is a market where homes sit longer, inventories climb, and sellers slash prices just to spark interest. Meanwhile, many of the jobs sustaining Tucson, education, military contracts, healthcare, don't come with the kind of wage growth needed to absorb rising costs in insurance, taxes, and mortgages. The city still carries its vibrant culture and unique identity, but the housing market reflects an underlying strain that grows harder to ignore with each passing month. Together, Prescott, Chandler, and Tucson reveal how diverse forces can all lead to the same outcome: collapsing buyer demand. In one city, it's retirees on fixed incomes squeezed by costs they cannot control. In another, it's professionals losing confidence as layoffs meet high housing expenses. And in yet another, it's everyday families caught in the widening gap between wages and prices. These aren't isolated struggles. They're signs of a broader shift across Arizona's housing market. If cracks are this visible in such different corners of the state, what does that say about the cities still ahead in this countdown? The answer is sobering, because as we move closer to number 1, the collapse only grows deeper and the warning signs become impossible to ignore. At number 4, Glendale tells a story that feels all too familiar for working families across Arizona. For years, Glendale was the attainable option, a city where young couples could buy their first home, raise children, and stay close enough to Phoenix for work while enjoying more space. But in 2025, those same families are being priced out, not because sticker prices have soared, but because the hidden costs of ownership have climbed out of reach. Insurance premiums in flood-prone and fire-sensitive areas have doubled, with some households paying thousands more than they did just a few years ago. HOA fees, once a small monthly line item, are now climbing to several $100s, eating into budgets already stretched thin by rising mortgage payments. Families who thought they had calculated affordability are discovering that ownership comes with relentless overhead. The result is a doubling of listings compared to just 2 years ago, as sellers scramble to offload homes before costs overwhelm them. For buyers, the fear of stepping into this trap has stalled demand, leaving entire neighborhoods with more "for sale" signs than move-in celebrations. Glendale is no longer the safe bet it once was, and the stress on families is reshaping the city's identity. At number 3, Scottsdale, long synonymous with luxury, reveals how even the high end of the market isn't immune. For decades, Scottsdale thrived on being the destination for second homes, luxury condos, and vacation properties. The city built its brand on prestige and exclusivity, with developers racing to put up sleek towers and gated communities to attract investors and wealthy out-of-state buyers. But in 2025, that model is unraveling. Investors who once lined up to pay premiums are now pulling back, unwilling to carry properties that sit vacant or underperform as rentals. Oversupply is everywhere. Rows of high-end condos are hitting the market at the same time, creating a glut that undercuts the very exclusivity buyers once paid for. Prices are slipping, sellers are offering concessions, and even staging and marketing gimmicks can't disguise the fact that demand has dried up. What was once marketed as a secure luxury play is now a warning sign. If even Scottsdale's high-end properties can't hold value, what does that say for the rest of the state? For residents who tied their wealth or retirement plans to property here, the shift feels like betrayal, a reminder that prestige doesn't protect you when fundamentals weaken. At number 2, Phoenix, Arizona's crown jewel, brings the housing correction into full focus. This metro has always been the heart of the state's growth story. Job creation, migration, construction, and cultural energy all converged here to fuel one of the hottest housing markets in the nation. But rapid growth often comes with overconfidence, and Phoenix is now paying that price. Builders overshot demand, flooding the market with subdivisions, townhomes, and multi-unit developments. In 2025, thousands of homes are sitting unsold, and inventories are climbing month after month. What looked like endless demand has slowed to a crawl, leaving sellers cutting prices and offering incentives just to get noticed. Mortgage rates near 7% have pushed monthly payments beyond what many local families can shoulder, creating a standoff between buyers who can't afford and sellers who can't hold on. Investors are dumping properties, sometimes accepting losses simply to exit the market. And yet, perhaps the most sobering sign is psychological. Confidence has evaporated. For years, Phoenix homeowners believed their equity would rise forever. Now, for the first time in over a decade, they're questioning whether values can fall further. When that mindset takes hold, markets don't just cool, they reset. Glendale's stressed families, Scottsdale's shaken investors, and Phoenix's overbuilt sprawl all paint a picture of Arizona's housing reality in 2025. Each city reflects a different side of the collapse, but together they make one thing clear. No segment is safe. When everyday households, luxury buyers, and major investors are all stepping back, the correction isn't coming. It's already here. And if Phoenix itself is stumbling, the question becomes chilling. Which city could possibly be worse? The answer lies at number 1, and it will show just how deep this collapse truly runs. At number 1, the city that has taken the hardest hit in Arizona's housing market collapse, Gilbert. For years, Gilbert was the crown jewel of suburban living, celebrated as the place where families could buy new homes in master-planned communities. Investors could count on steady appreciation, and schools and neighborhoods carried the promise of long-term stability. It was one of the fastest-growing cities in the nation, a symbol of Arizona's rise as a magnet for migration and investment. But in 2025, the very speed of that growth has become its downfall. Builders, sensing endless demand, rushed to meet it with wave after wave of development. Entire neighborhoods sprang up almost overnight, each one promising the same lifestyle of parks, good schools, and wide streets. For a while, buyers and investors lined up, convinced they were stepping into a sure thing. But when demand slowed, the illusion shattered. Oversupply now defines the market. Gilbert has more active listings than at any point in its history, and the numbers keep climbing. Rows of nearly identical homes sit vacant, waiting for buyers who no longer exist in the same numbers. What makes Gilbert's collapse so painful is how personal it feels for those who believed in the city's promise. Families who stretched their budgets to secure a piece of this suburban dream now watch values wobble, fearful that what was supposed to be their safest investment could turn into a liability. Investors who once dominated the market are retreating en masse, some panic selling properties at a loss just to get out. Year over year, listings have surged faster here than anywhere else in Arizona, signaling that the foundation wasn't as solid as everyone hoped. And behind the data lies a deeper truth. Wages in Gilbert haven't kept up with housing costs. The city's prosperity was built on the assumption that high demand would carry everyone forward. But with incomes stagnant and overhead costs like insurance and taxes climbing, that equation no longer works. When affordability breaks, confidence collapses, and when confidence collapses, markets reset. Gilbert's fall isn't just about numbers, it's a cautionary tale. Growth that seems unstoppable rarely is, and the faster it rises, the harder it falls. When you step back and connect the dots, a clear pattern emerges across Arizona. This isn't about one city struggling with oversupply or another facing shrinking affordability. It's a statewide shift, a reminder that markets are interconnected and that cracks in one place often foreshadow deeper weaknesses elsewhere. From Flagstaff's rising insurance costs to Gilbert's oversaturation, the story is the same. Demand that once felt limitless has begun to falter. The parallels to 2008 are unavoidable, but the triggers today are different. Back then, reckless lending fueled the collapse. Now it's rising interest rates, runaway insurance premiums, and the slowing pace of migration that once buoyed Arizona's boom. Each of these pressures chips away at confidence, and when confidence breaks, demand collapses faster than statistics alone can explain. For homeowners, investors, and renters alike, the lesson is sobering. Growth doesn't last forever, and no market is immune. Arizona's correction isn't a fluke. It's a signal, a cautionary tale for anyone who assumes rising values are guaranteed. The dream of affordable suburban security is being rewritten in real time, and those who ignore the shift risk learning the hard way that every boom eventually meets its breaking point. So now the question is, what about you? Did your city appear on this list, or are you starting to notice the same cracks forming in your own neighborhood? Maybe it's homes sitting longer on the market or neighbors quietly lowering their asking prices. These small signals often tell the bigger story. I'd love to hear what you're seeing firsthand, so share your perspective in the comments. And if you found this breakdown useful, take a moment to subscribe, because this is just one chapter. The next markets we uncover may be even closer to home, and you won't want to miss them.